Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now today we're playing Crimson Desert on the minimum system requirements as stated on the developer's website. So if we take a look at the PC specs here, we are interested specifically in the minimum category. We have 1080p upscaled from 900p for 30 FPS, and in order to achieve this apparently we need an RX 5500 XT or GTX 1060 along with a 2600X Ryzen or i5 8500. Now I've gone with the 1060 option. It doesn't specify which, so I've bought both a 6 and 3 gig card, and I've also gone with the i5, which may be the less popular choice, but this is a 6-core 6-thread CPU. Unlike the Ryzen, it doesn't have 12 threads, so I thought it would be a bit more challenging. I've also got 16 gigs of DDR4 clocked at 2400 MHz, two 8GB sticks, so we're running in dual channel. And we are of course using an SSD. We do however have Windows 11 installed and not Windows 10 as stated. So can we actually hit 30 FPS with a 1060 and i5 8500 system? Well, let's find out. Of course, just like most modern games, the first thing we have to do is wait for the shaders to compile here. This took about 5 minutes on this system. So the first thing we're going to do here is jump into the settings and see what the game has to offer. And we'll also get a look at what it's defaulted to. Now I'm imagining that the game has probably set everything to its respective lowest. Right, so we have full screen mode here, 1920 by 1080. We'll leave upscaling off for now. So this is upscaling off gameplay to start with. We'll turn VSync off here, don't want that interfering for now. We'll go into the graphics options, and yeah, the minimum preset has been pre-selected by the game. We'll just run through these to make sure everything has actually been turned down to its respective lowest. Sometimes there are still a few options to tinker with. Even if a game has a minimum preset, there may be a few more settings that we can adjust. It's also worth looking under the other options here. For example, we have audio input, language and gameplay, and accessibility at the top, and you might find that sometimes, more specifically under the gameplay or accessibility tabs, there will be a couple more options to adjust. Yeah, here we go. See, under accessibility we have camera shake intensity, particle effects, and as we can see here it says that lowering this setting may improve performance. So we'll turn camera shake off anyway because I just don't like things like that. I'm not really a fan. We'll also turn particle effects quality all the way down, as this is the one that says we may see better performance. Blur intensity can go as well because I just don't like things like that, to be honest. We'll also turn depth of field off, again personal preference, but feel free to do what you like here. So we are of course starting with the 6GB 1060. It's not just a case of double the VRAM as opposed to the 3GB 1060, but this card also has more cores as well. Driver support ended a while ago, but we do still get security updates. This is a pretty early scene here. Now my first impressions of the graphics is that they are a little bit blurry. Even with native res it looks like we've got some sort of upscaling enabled, even though we don't. There's a little bit of blur to everything here. And performance of course with the minimum specs here is sitting at just below 30 FPS. This is with upscaling off, so I sort of expected this. We're actually closer than I thought to 30 frames per second. As you can see, we're exceeding 3 gigs of VRAM, so I'm not sure how the 3 gig version of this card is going to cope. Let's move into a less intensive scene and see how things change. As you can see in this case we are exceeding 30 FPS, but I expected as much from a scene that's basically got nothing going on in the background here. We're just walking, literally walking down this pathway, and yeah, pretty close to 30 FPS, exceeding it sometimes, but there are still a few dips and drops. But the minimum specs did state upscaling, so we'll try that momentarily. Alright, so here we are on horseback now, riding through the forest. So we'll just go across this bridge. A lovely looking scene here, and then we will enable a few upscaling options or take a look at what is on offer here to try and improve performance. Yeah, this looks really nice. I think we'll use this as a thumbnail. We'll get rid of the overlay there. Yeah, there we go. This might make it as the thumbnail for the upload, not sure yet, but if it does, this is the scene that I got it from. Okay, so let's jump into the options menu again and see what upscaling options are on offer here. Right, so we have FSR 3.1 and okay, that's weird, DLSS 4 and 4.5, which we shouldn't be able to use because we have a 1060 in the system. I think these options are just selectable regardless. I don't think they're actually going to do anything. Let's enable DLSS 4 and see what happens. Yeah, there's like no change visually or performance wise, so I don't think DLSS 4 is making a difference. Why would it? This 1060 doesn't support such a feature. Obviously the best bet then with this hardware to see an actual difference is going to be FSR 3.1. Now, as usual, we have a few options to choose from, ranging from native AA all the way down to ultra performance mode. We'll start with native AA here just to see. Oh, well, actually that makes things a lot sharper. That looks a lot better than what we were seeing before. It does impact our frame rate a little bit, but you're definitely going to want to enable this if you have a more powerful card that doesn't support DLSS, of course, because it does make things look a lot sharper overall. Obviously, it's no good for our performance here. We're going to have to enable quality mode, perhaps, to try and hit that 30 FPS threshold. I think I'm going to give up on trying to hit 60 already. That is not going to be possible on such hardware. But yeah, FSR 3.1 quality gets us at least 30 frames per second, a lot more of the time, it would seem. But as you can see by the frame time graph, there are a few dips and drops below that. Alright, we're a little further on in the game now. I'm going to drop the quality preset down to FSR 3.1 balanced and see what sort of performance difference that makes. So we'll go with balanced mode here. We'll apply the changes, jump back into the game. And what are we going to get? We're going to get 40 FPS? No, 35, 36, somewhere between 30 and 40 frames per second, low 30s most of the time. The game still looks okay. I'd say that with FSR 3.1 balanced, it looks still a little sharper than the game without any FSR on, because there is a slight blur to everything with no FSR option selected. So this might be a better way to play on older hardware. Yeah, we're hovering between 30 and 35 frames per second. Look at this guy, he's massive. We just start a fight for no reason. Oh, he didn't really want to play. Right, let's just have a quick run through town. Okay, I assume that when things get a little busier, that the frame rate will of course drop a little bit more. But here things are holding pretty steady. It would be nice to implement a 30 FPS cap, I think, just so that any dips and drops don't feel as significant. And that's something we may explore a little later on actually in this video. Well, the scenery looks pretty good there. Okay, I can't go this way at the moment. We'll have to come back a bit later on. Let's just switch to FSR 3.1 performance mode quickly. It doesn't really make a difference, to be honest. The difference between a balanced and performance mode is minimal from what I'm seeing on a 1060 6 gig. I'm sure the same can probably be said for ultra performance as well. Then we'll just have a quick look. This isn't going to look very pleasant. Okay, yeah, it's just ever so slightly blurrier, and we get about 1 or 2 frames more. I don't think that's worth it, to be honest, for the visual sacrifice. I think we may as well just stick with balanced mode, to be fair. Yeah, this is still going to get us very similar performance on the 6 gig 1060. So we can see that's maxed out, but the i5 is doing pretty well in its own right. The 6-core, 6-thread i5 8500. I then decided to use Riva Tuner to enable a 30 FPS cap. Here, Riva Tuner comes with MSI Afterburner, which is the software that we use to look at the performance, the on-screen overlay that you see in most of my videos. Now, enabling a cap can help alleviate some of the dips and drops and make things feel a bit smoother. For example, if you're getting 32 FPS and then you're dropping to 28 FPS, it's going to feel a little bit worse than dropping from, say, 30 to 28. So it may be nice if you're not really getting at least 30 FPS a lot of the time anyway, to enable a frame rate cap with third-party software. As you can see here, we have 30 FPS enabled with FSR 3.1 balanced, still using the absolute lowest settings, but that frame time graph now is pretty much completely smooth. This is certainly a better way to play if you're happy with 30 FPS. Of course, it's either a smooth 30 FPS or it's a very stuttery 33 FPS without a cap. Right, I don't know why I started on this lot here. The controls in this game I'm not a huge fan of. I am using a keyboard and mouse, but it does say when you start it up on Steam that controller is best, and I think that would definitely help me out here. As much as I do enjoy a keyboard and mouse, some games just feel better with a controller, and I think this is certainly one of them. Okay, so now we have switched to the 3GB 1060. This doesn't just halve the VRAM, but it does of course have less cores as well. We're still using FSR 3.1 with balanced mode selected, and as we can see here, the performance does suffer quite a little bit. There are frame time issues. A 30 FPS cap probably isn't going to help us out that much here because we can't really hit 30 FPS anyway with FSR 3.1 balanced. Jumping back into the settings here, and we're going to drop all the way down to FSR 3.1 Ultra Performance. I think that's the only way we're going to see at least 30 FPS. Even then, actually, we're not really getting that a lot of the time. When you're out in more open areas, sure, 30 to 35 is possible, but we are severely limited in terms of VRAM. Nice to see it actually running, but yeah, we're in those busier town areas, and I'm sure as we move through the game, encounter busier places, cities and whatnot, that performance is really going to drop. But I'm sure the same can be said for the 6GB card. So although it doesn't state whether or not the 6 or 3GB card is part of the minimum specs, the 6GB card is certainly the minimum I would suggest. You're probably going to want better than a 1060 for a more consistent experience, but you can get away with it if you implement an FPS cap of 30 and you use FSR upscaling. But there we are, Crimson Desert on the minimum specifications. Thanks for watching. Let me know how it runs on your system. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already and you want to, of course. And in the next one, we'll probably be testing it on my older i7-4790K PC to see how well that does. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.